Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It happened 2 days before Christmas, inside this little rustic cafe off Hawthorne Street, the kind of place that smells like cinnamon steam and burnt espresso, where the windows fog up from too many people nursing lattes and unsaid things. I was sitting across from Jessica, my sister-in-law, Emily's younger sister, and she wasn't touching her drink. She just stared at me with this icy tension in her shoulders, like she was about to pull the pin out of something. "I'm only going to say this once," Jessica said, her voice low but clear. "Emily's cheating on you." The words hung there. Cold. Precise. I blinked once. Twice. Then I leaned forward, eyebrows knitting together. "With who?" I asked, trying not to laugh, trying to stay composed. She didn't flinch. "With Saul, my husband." My stomach dropped so fast I actually thought I was going to be sick. But instead of showing that, I narrowed my eyes and said, "You're out of your mind." Jessica's expression didn't budge. "You think I'd make something like this up? You think I'd blow up my own marriage, our whole family, for fun?" "Maybe not for fun," I said sharply, "but out of spite. Maybe." Jessica looked like I'd slapped her. "Spite? You've always had something to prove, Jess. You've always had this thing with Emily. Some twisted competition." "I came here to warn you," she snapped. "I thought you deserved the truth. But if you'd rather play dumb—" "No," I cut in, voice rising. "What I'd rather do is not sit here while my wife's little sister tries to tear down my marriage with some fantasy cooked up during one of your wine-fueled breakdowns." Jessica went pale. She opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it. Her lips trembled just a little. The silence between us was ugly. "Emily loves me," I said, slower this time. "And I trust her. Whatever's going on in your marriage. Maybe it's your fault Saul's looking elsewhere." Jessica's jaw clenched. "You have no idea what you're saying." "I think I do," I said, pushing back my chair. "And I think this conversation's over." She didn't follow me when I left. She just sat there, blinking back tears, a dozen unsaid things cracking behind her eyes. Outside, the air was freezing. I stood on the sidewalk for a second, trying to slow my breath. And yet, underneath all that anger, something had started to itch. I wanted to believe Emily couldn't, that she wouldn't. But Jessica's eyes, they hadn't been lying. Still, I shoved that thought down. Emily was my wife, my best friend, my world. And I wasn't about to let my sister-in-law tear that apart with her broken heart and wild suspicions. Not today. Not ever. That night, the kitchen felt like something out of a holiday movie. The lasagna was bubbling in the oven, casting that warm, cheesy scent into every corner of the house, and vanilla candles flickered from the windowsill like little breathing lights. Emily stood barefoot near the stove, humming along to an old playlist from our college days, something soft, nostalgic. She had her hair up in a loose bun and wore one of my flannel shirts over her leggings, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Comfortable. Familiar. Completely untouched by the conversation I'd had just hours ago. I leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her slice garlic bread with way more care than necessary. My mind kept circling back to the cafe, to Jessica's voice and that look in her eyes. But in this room, it didn't fit. In this moment, Emily was my wife, not some character in a messy accusation. "You remember that awful dorm mixer you dragged me to?" she asked, turning with a smirk. "The one with the neon paint and the karaoke machine that broke halfway through?" I laughed, grateful for the shift in air. "You mean the one where you sang 'Don't Stop Believin'' and forgot all the lyrics?" "I didn't forget," she said, walking over to the table with 2 glasses of wine. "I just improvised. You shouted 'Hold on to that pizza' instead of 'feeling.'" I shook my head. Real poetic. She sat down across from me, still grinning. "I peaked that night. And yet, you still married me." "You peaked way after that," I replied, raising my glass. "You just had a weird start." We clinked our glasses, and she reached across the table, threading her fingers through mine. Her grip was warm, intentional, and then she said it, soft but direct. "You're still the best thing in my life." My throat tightened, just for a second. But I smiled, because I meant it when I said back, "You too." The oven timer dinged, but neither of us moved right away. We sat in the dim light, the glow from the candles dancing on her cheekbones, the scent of garlic and vanilla all wrapped around us like memory. Everything about the moment felt true. I wanted to stay in it. I needed to. Emily let go of my hand and got up to pull the lasagna out, using those ridiculous green oven mitts shaped like frogs, a gag gift from our first anniversary. I watched her move, humming again, carefully setting the tray on the stovetop. As she leaned forward to check the bottom, her phone buzzed from the counter. She didn't glance at it, didn't flinch, didn't hide anything, just turned and said, "Grab the salad?" On it. And that was it. Dinner that night was easy. We laughed until our ribs ached, teased each other about old friends, and even played 2 rounds of cards after cleaning up. She beat me both times. Said it was payback for the karaoke memory. When we finally climbed into bed, she snuggled into my chest and whispered, "You make everything feel safe." I closed my eyes, holding her close. If there was something hiding beneath that smile, if any part of what Jessica claimed was true, it didn't show tonight. And honestly, I didn't want it to. Not yet. Not when everything felt this real. It started like a splinter, small, irritating, something I told myself not to pick at. 2 days after our candlelit dinner, I came home from work and found Emily on the couch, legs tucked under her, face lit by the glow of her phone. She didn't notice me at first, which wasn't unusual, but when I stepped into the living room and said, "Hey, I'm home," she jumped, just slightly, and flipped her phone screen face down against the cushion. I raised an eyebrow. "Who were you texting?" She smiled quickly, almost too quickly. "Just Jessica." I nodded, forced a smile back. "Everything good with her?" Emily stood and kissed my cheek like nothing was off. "Yeah, she's being dramatic about something again. You know, Jess." That used to be a harmless line, but now it landed differently. That night, while we brushed our teeth side by side, I caught a glimpse of her phone lighting up on the bathroom counter. I didn't mean to look, but her hand flew across the sink to flip it over before I could even see the name. She didn't say anything, just rinsed her mouth and hummed. By the 3rd day, I noticed she kept her phone on silent, even when she wasn't in meetings or on a call. Notifications didn't ding anymore. They just lit up in brief, quiet pulses, messages she never opened when I was in the room. Once, I saw her swipe them away so fast it was like they burned. I tried not to overthink it. I told myself, don't become that guy. Don't turn suspicious just because someone else planted a thought. But then came the 4th night. We were sitting on the couch, watching some home renovation show in that lazy after-dinner haze. I had one arm around her shoulder, my legs stretched out, half asleep from the pasta. Emily was scrolling through her phone, smiling to herself. Then she giggled. Giggled. "What's funny?" I asked casually. She glanced at me, her smile faltering, and quickly angled the screen away. "Nothing. Just a dumb meme Jess sent." I reached toward her lap, lighthearted. "Let me see." She pulled the phone back. "It's not even that funny, Mike." "Then let me be the judge." I laughed, tried to play it off, but something inside me tightened. She held the phone to her chest. "Come on, don't be weird." And that's when something in me cracked. I didn't plan it. I didn't shout. I didn't even speak. I just reached forward and grabbed the phone out of her hands. "Michael, what are you doing?" she gasped, scrambling up. I held the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Her messages were still open. I saw only one word, Saul. Emily lunged forward and snatched it back. "You can't just." Her voice broke. Tears burst from her eyes like a dam snapping under pressure. "I can't believe you do that," she cried, stumbling backward. I stood there, heart pounding, as she clutched the phone like it was something sacred, like I had violated something deep. "You lied to me," I said, my voice shaking. "You said it was Jessica." She didn't answer, just turned and ran upstairs, her sobs echoing off the hallway walls. I didn't follow her. Not right away. I stood in the living room, the TV screen now black, reflecting my silhouette like some stranger I didn't know anymore. My hands were shaking, not with rage, with loss, with something deeper. This wasn't just doubt now. It wasn't a whisper from Jessica I could ignore. It was a crack, sharp, undeniable, and spreading fast across the glass. The next morning, I left the house without saying a word. Emily's door was locked. I heard nothing from the other side. No crying, no movement. Just silence. Heavy, like it had taken up permanent residence in our hallway. I stood outside the door for a while, hand half raised to knock, but didn't. Instead, I walked downstairs, grabbed my keys, and drove to a building I hadn't visited in nearly 5 years. Dr. Lauren Finch's office sat on the 3rd floor of a quiet building downtown. It hadn't changed much: soft seafoam walls, the faint scent of eucalyptus, and those ocean paintings she'd always loved. Calm waves, open skies, a place you could breathe. I hadn't booked an appointment. Just walked in, told her receptionist I was a returning client in need of urgent clarity. 15 minutes later, I was sitting on the same soft couch I'd once used to unpack my anxiety during grad school. Dr. Finch smiled when she entered, same calm energy as always. Mid-50s, hair in a bun, voice like warm tea. "Michael," she said gently. "Been a while." "Yeah," I muttered. "Too long." She sat across from me, notebook in hand, but not writing. Just waiting. So I told her. Not everything. Just enough. My sister-in-law's accusation. Emily's late-night giggles. The way her phone had become a second heartbeat. How I'd grabbed it from her hands the night before, and how I hadn't recognized the person I was while doing it. I ended with a simple, tired question. How do I know if I'm seeing what's real, or what I want to see? Dr. Finch nodded slowly. "That's a hard place to sit in," she said. "Because once doubt enters the picture, the brain shifts into what we call hyperattentiveness. Every movement, every laugh, every silence, it all becomes suspect. It's like your nervous system goes into detective mode." "So I'm paranoid?" "Not exactly." She leaned forward. "You're reacting to fear. You love her. You've built trust with her. So when that trust feels endangered, your mind starts grabbing for evidence, real or not, to protect itself." I swallowed hard. But I saw the name. Saul. Dr. Finch gave a small nod. "And you have every right to feel shaken by that. But grabbing her phone, that's not about truth. That's about control. And you've never been someone who operates from control, Michael. That's not you." I sat with that. Let it sting a little. She continued, "What you're feeling right now is real. But so is the damage that can come from acting before understanding. So what do? Start with humility," she said. "Start with an apology, not because you're wrong about your instincts, but because you're responsible for your reaction. The moment you grabbed her phone, you broke something too." I nodded, eyes burning. "She's not talking to me." "Then you talk first." I left the office 30 minutes later feeling lighter and somehow smaller. Not in a bad way, just aware of the space I'd taken up and how I'd used it. It was drizzling when I stepped outside. Portland winter, not quite rain, not quite mist. Just a soft, gray wash over everything. On my way home, I stopped at the florist on Belmont and bought tulips. Emily's favorite, pink and white. The woman behind the counter wrapped them in brown paper and tied them with a twine bow. "They're fresh this morning," she said. "Cut just after dawn." I texted Emily from the sidewalk before walking home. I'm sorry for how I reacted. I was hurt. That doesn't excuse grabbing your phone. I should have asked. "I want to talk when you're ready." No reply. But I hit send anyway. The flowers felt heavier than they should have as I carried them down our block, the drizzle soaking through my jacket. But in a strange way, it felt like the walk back to something. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the first step toward understanding what I'd really seen and what I hadn't. I came home wet from the drizzle, tulips in hand, and laid them gently on the kitchen counter beside the note I'd written. "Talk when you're ready. I'm not going anywhere." The house was silent. No creak of upstairs floorboards, no rustle of movement. Just that heavy kind of stillness that made every clock tick sound like a drumbeat. I made tea and sat on the couch, staring at the blank television again. The same dark screen where I'd seen my own shaken reflection just one night earlier. That was when my phone buzzed. A message. From Jessica. I hesitated for a moment. My thumb hovered over the notification, something instinctive in me whispering don't. But I opened it. No words at first. Just a video file. I tapped play. At first, the camera was shaky, like someone had propped a phone up on a shelf or ledge. A hotel room. Plain beige walls. Lamplight. A couch. And then I saw Emily walk in. She was laughing. Laughing. She kicked off her shoes, dropped her bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the couch with a casual comfort I recognized too well. A second later, Saul entered frame. My brother-in-law. Shirt untucked, sleeves rolled. He sat beside her. Close. Too close. I couldn't hear the audio, but I didn't need to. I watched him tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear. She didn't pull away. She smiled. She rested her head against his shoulder like it was hers to rest on. The video ended there. It was only 31 seconds. But it didn't need to be longer than that. A second message followed. "Jessica, you owe me a date." Honey winking face I stared at the words, fingers tightening around the edge of my phone. The tulips were still on the counter, fresh and clueless. I looked at them for a long time. Then I typed back, "Me, what time should I pick you up today?" She replied almost instantly, "Jessica, 7. And we're something decent." This time, we toast to honesty. I didn't even know how to sit still after that. I stood, paced, sat again. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't panic I felt. It was something colder, something slower. Not betrayal, not yet, but the undeniable weight of confirmation. Hours later, I was back at that same cafe, the one where Jessica and I had clashed just days before. Same corner table, same dim lights casting long shadows across our faces. She was already there when I walked in, hair curled, a coat the color of rust, and lipstick one shade too bold for casual. When I sat, she didn't speak right away. Neither did I. Finally, I broke the silence. "You could have just told me." Jessica stirred her drink slowly. "I did. You could have shown me then. I wanted you to believe it. On your own." She looked up. "But you didn't want to see it, Michael. Not until now." I nodded, eyes still locked on hers. "You're right." A server came by, dropped off 2 glasses of wine. We didn't toast. Jessica leaned back, watching me. "So," she asked softly, "are you here to yell at me? To thank me? To judge me for saving proof?" I shook my head. "I'm here to say I'm sorry. I thought you were bitter. I thought you were trying to ruin what I had." She smiled faintly. "I was bitter, but not about Emily. About the way people love to pretend. The way they defend lies just because they're easier than the truth." Silence settled between us again, but this time, it wasn't sharp. It was honest. She raised her glass slightly. "To the truth," she said. I met her halfway, and just before we sipped, she added under her breath, "Truth has a price." And she was right, because I was already starting to feel the cost. When I stepped back into the house that evening, the smell of something warm and sweet hit me instantly, vanilla again. And lasagna. Leftovers reheated, probably. The kitchen lights were on, golden and soft. And there she was, Emily. She was humming, barefoot, back turned toward me as she adjusted the tulips I'd brought earlier, now resting in a tall glass vase. She was smiling to herself, completely unaware. I stood in the doorway for a second too long, watching, listening. That humming, light, aimless, hit differently now, because I knew what I knew. "Hey," she said suddenly, turning and catching sight of me. Her whole face lit up like it always used to. "You came back just in time. I thought maybe you needed space." She walked toward me, slow, the kind of walk she used when she wanted peace after a disagreement. The kind that once made me feel loved. "I found your note," she added softly, touching my arm. "The flowers were beautiful, Mike. I'm sorry for shutting down last night. I really am." She leaned in, eyes searching mine. "Can we just reset?" I didn't move. Her smile faded a little. She tilted her head. "Michael," she whispered. I reached into my coat pocket and took out my phone. My thumb tapped once, then twice. I turned the screen toward her. The video began to play. No words. Only her. Only Saul. Emily's face didn't move at first, but her breath hitched. I watched her eyes flick to the edges of the screen like she hoped it might cut to something else, something that saved her. It didn't. The video ended. And for a moment, nothing. Then she crumbled. "No. Wait. Just." Her knees buckled slightly, and she braced herself against the counter. "Michael, please." I didn't say anything. Tears poured down her face as she reached for me. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't even know how to tell you. It was a mistake. I swear it was just once." I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. "You lied. I didn't want to lose you," she cried, choking on the words. "You're the only good thing in my life, I swear. You. This is the only thing that's ever felt real to me." Her hands shook as she grabbed for mine, but I stepped back. "Michael, please," she begged. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can just say something." My voice, when it finally came, was steady. "Pack a bag." She froze. "What? You can't stay here." "Michael, you broke it," I said, eyes locked on hers. "And I don't want to live in something broken anymore." She stood there for a moment, tears still falling. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her shoulders fell, and slowly, she turned. No more pleading. No more words. She walked up the stairs with the slow, dragging weight of someone watching their whole world collapse behind them. 10 minutes later, I heard the suitcase wheels click across the wood floor. She came down with red eyes and trembling lips. Stopped in the hallway. "I still love you," she whispered. I didn't reply. She stepped out the door. And this time, the silence she left behind felt like air. Clean. Still. Final. "Before we move on, tap like if this is landing for you." 3 days later, the papers were signed. Emily didn't fight it. Not for the house. Not for the savings. She just stood across from me in that quiet law office with a pale face and hands folded so tightly in her lap they trembled. I didn't gloat. Didn't look for revenge in her eyes. I just signed my name and slid the pen back across the table. It was done. When I got home that afternoon, the first thing I did was open all the windows. Let the December air roll through every room like it had a job to do. Like it could scrub the walls clean of everything that had ever gone wrong. That night, Jessica showed up with a duffel bag and a tired smile. "Don't get excited," she said, kicking her boots off at the door. "It's just for a few days. My place is still half full of Saul's junk." "You're welcome to stay," I replied. "Honestly, it's not weird." She smirked. "It's a little weird." We both laughed, and for the first time in what felt like weeks, the sound wasn't hollow. We ordered pizza, opened a bottle of wine neither of us had planned to finish, sat on the living room floor because neither of us felt like using the dining table. The tulips were still there, now wilting at the edges. I hadn't moved them. Jessica opened her phone and pulled up Instagram. "You seen what Emily's been up to?" I raised an eyebrow. Should I care? She turned the screen toward me anyway. Emily's face filled the frame, glowing skin, a bright filter, some holiday-themed backdrop. Saul's arm was looped around her shoulders, his cheek pressed against hers. They were holding hot chocolates in matching mugs. The caption, "Sometimes things fall apart, so better things can fall together snowflake, dizzy #blessed #growth #healing." Jessica stared at it for a beat, then rolled her eyes. "Growth," she muttered, sipping her wine. "They're matching now. That's her new personality, I guess." I chuckled. "Looks cozy." Jessica tapped the screen. "You see that mug he's holding? I bought that. Literally from Target, like 3 months ago." I shook my head. "Recycling everything, I guess." There was a pause. Then Jessica looked at me sideways, half a grin forming. "Two can play that game," she said, low and amused. I raised my glass and tapped it lightly against hers. "Cheers to that." And just like that, the weight started to lift. Not all at once, but enough. The neighborhood holiday party had that kind of energy only small communities manage to summon. Cheap string lights flickering across the backyard, mismatched plastic chairs, and someone's Bluetooth speaker playing Mariah Carey on loop. Laughter floated through the December chill like it belonged there. Jessica and I weren't planning to stay long. She even said so while pulling her sweater over her head in my hallway. 20 minutes, she warned, tying her hair into a loose bun. "I can fake festive for 20 minutes, max." But 20 minutes turned into 40, then an hour. And somehow we were in the thick of it. Jessica chatting with Mrs. Klein about her labradoodle, me nursing a cider beside the bonfire. Then I saw them, Emily and Saul. They arrived late, hand in hand like they were still rehearsing a scene they weren't convinced by. Saul wore that smug, over-tailored look like a badge of honor. Emily's smile was too wide, too perfect, like porcelain glued together after a crack. Jessica saw them at the same time I did. She nudged me gently, voice low. "Well," she said, "Christmas ghosts are here." I didn't reply, just set my drink down and offered my arm. "Wanna dance?" She blinked. "You serious?" "Why not?" She paused, then slipped her hand into mine with a shrug. "Let's ruin someone's night." We made our way to the makeshift dance floor, just a stretch of grass under a canopy of lights where a few brave couples swayed half-heartedly to the music. The song wasn't romantic. Some mid-tempo throwback beat. But that didn't matter. Jessica leaned in, resting her hands around my shoulders, close but unhurried. We moved in slow, easy circles. Her breath was warm near my collar. "They're watching," she murmured. "I know. You want to stop?" I looked at her, really looked, and shook my head. "Not even a little." She smiled. Then she kissed me. No warning. No hesitation. Just leaned in, tilted her head, and pressed her lips to mine with the kind of certainty that didn't ask for permission. It wasn't dramatic or showy. It wasn't even about them. It was just real. When we pulled apart, the music kept playing. People kept laughing. But across the yard, 2 people had stopped moving. Emily and Saul stood frozen near the drink table. Emily's mouth was slightly open. Saul was mid-sip, arm limp at his side. Jessica didn't look at them. She just turned slightly, her chin resting on my shoulder. But I did look. Emily's expression had shifted from shock to something else, something tight and ugly around the edges. She whispered something to Saul. He snapped back. Not loud. Not yet. But it was obvious. They were arguing. Her smile cracked first. Then his. Saul looked away. Emily stared at the ground. Around them, no one noticed. Mrs. Klein was still laughing with the neighbors. A teenager spilled soda on the deck. Someone yelled for more firewood. The world kept spinning. But their masks had slipped. And we didn't need to say a word to know it. 6 months. That's how long it's been since everything quietly fell into place. It didn't happen like a movie. There was no grand speech, no dramatic kiss in the rain, no soft piano cue when things turned around. It just happened slowly, one Tuesday at a time. Jessica never left after those first few nights. Her things migrated into drawers, then closets. At some point, her favorite coffee mug sat permanently next to mine on the counter, and we both stopped pretending this was temporary. Mornings became shared routines, brushing shoulders in the hallway, competing for mirror space, arguing over who finished the last of the cereal. I started cooking more, and she started teasing me about how I always overcooked the eggs. "You're a perfectly competent man with the soul of a nervous chef," she'd joke, flipping them herself. We walked in the evenings, sometimes through the neighborhood, sometimes just a lazy loop around the block with no destination in mind. We talked more in those walks than we ever did at dinner tables with our exes. About music, about movies, about where we thought we'd end up by now. And sometimes, in quieter moments, about everything we lost. "I still don't know what part of me thought he wouldn't do it," she admitted once as we passed a yard full of hydrangeas. "I mean, Saul was always looking for someone to clap for him. I just stopped clapping." I didn't say anything, just squeezed her hand. Some days still carried weight. Emily would post something, or Saul would show up in someone's story, and one of us would go quiet. But it passed faster each time. The revenge? That burned off early. Whatever heat we once carried from being betrayed had cooled, turned into something warmer, more grounded. It wasn't about winning anymore. It wasn't even about them. It was about now. And now felt good. One evening in early December, I strung up lights across the back deck. Jessica came outside holding 2 mugs of cider, her cheeks pink from the cold, a wool blanket draped over her shoulders like a cape. "Okay, Clark Griswold," she smirked. "Trying to outshine the neighbors?" "They started it," I said, pointing at the Clarksons' flashing LED snowflakes across the street. We sat down together under the lights, tucked into the blanket like 2 conspirators hiding from the wind. The cider steamed between us. She rested her head on my shoulder, and neither of us spoke for a long time. It was quiet in a way that felt earned. Then I said it. "I think I love you now." The words just slipped out. No build-up. No speech. Just the plain truth, the way a person might admit they're tired or full or grateful. Jessica blinked, her breath catching slightly. She sat up, looked at me, then laughed. "You think you love me?" "I mean," I grinned, "I'm pretty sure. Unless this cider's stronger than I thought." She stared at me for a second longer, like she was scanning my face for a punchline. Then she said it. "Me too." Just like that. No drama. No hesitation. No need to define anything beyond that. We sat back under the lights again, shoulder to shoulder. No one clapped. Nothing grand happened. But I swear, in that small silence, something settled between us, something real. The night of the dinner, the dining table was already set when Jessica and I arrived. Crystal glasses glinting under the overhead light, cloth napkins folded with almost too much care, and the smell of roast chicken filling the room with the kind of warmth that only existed in their parents' home. It was all very intentional. Her mother fluttered around the table with wine bottles and second-guessing the gravy temperature, while her father stood near the living room, swirling a scotch and humming to himself. "You sure you're ready for this?" I murmured as we hung our coats by the door. Jessica glanced sideways, smiling. "I've never been readier to throw a bomb into a pot roast." "Perfect," I said. That's exactly the level of peace I was going for. We weren't the only guests, of course. Emily and Saul arrived just 10 minutes after us, late enough to feel deliberate. She wore a burgundy dress and a tight smile. He looked bored before he'd even stepped inside. They barely acknowledged us, and that was fine. We weren't there for them. Dinner began as awkwardly as expected. Jessica's mom, always the optimist, tried to keep conversation light. "So how is everyone? Still working from home, Michael?" I nodded politely. "A few days a week. Business has been steady." Saul chimed in. "Must be nice. Some of us have to actually go into the office." Emily cleared her throat, gently, but said nothing. Jessica smiled tightly, not even looking at him. "Michael's work ethic isn't really up for debate, Saul." Their mother waved a hand. "Let's not start that again. It's the holidays." Emily looked at Jessica across the table. "How long are you staying in Portland, Jess?" "Actually," Jessica said, setting her fork down. "That's kind of what we wanted to talk about." The room stilled, just slightly. Michael and I exchanged a glance. I gave her a nod. She reached for my hand under the table and laced her fingers through mine. Then she looked up at her parents, her father now watching closely, her mother with wide, polite eyes waiting for the punchline. "We're engaged," she said. Just like that. Simple. Direct. No build-up. No need. For a moment, no one spoke. Then her mother blinked. "Engaged?" Jessica held up her hand and wiggled her fingers, showing the modest gold ring we'd picked together. Her smile was gentle but unshakable. To each other, their father asked slowly, voice dry with disbelief. "Yes, Dad," Jessica said with a soft laugh. "Not symbolically. Officially." The silence stretched a beat too long. Then their mother stood abruptly and smiled like she'd just remembered how. "Well," she said, raising her glass, that's wonderful news." Her father nodded once, slower to rise, but eventually stood beside her, raising his glass. "To starting again. I suppose we all learned to get it right, the second time." Jessica clinked glasses with them, then with me. And then, "Are you kidding me?" Emily snapped. All heads turned. She was gripping her wine glass, her eyes locked on Saul with a fury so raw it stripped the pretense right off her face. "You knew," she hissed. Saul blinked. "What are you talking about?" "This," she snapped, motioning to us. "You knew they were together. Engaged. And you didn't say a word." "It's not my news to share, Em." She let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Of course not. You don't share anything unless it's convenient for you." Saul scoffed and leaned back. "Can we not do this here?" Emily stood. "Why? Embarrassed now? Or just bored again?" "Don't start." "No, let's talk about how you wrecked my marriage, promised me everything, then gave me nothing but Instagram captions and cold shoulders." The room froze. Jessica sat quietly, sipping her wine. Their parents stood in awkward silence, eyes darting between the two of them like watching a glass shelf crack in slow motion. Saul stood without another word, grabbed his coat, and walked out the front door. Just like that. No goodbye, no glance back. Emily stood shaking, then slowly sat, her hands clenched in her lap. The only sound that followed was the clinking of silverware. Then a few quiet sips of wine, a fork scraping the edge of a plate. Jessica reached for my hand again beneath the table. Her smile was small, but sure. The garden was quiet just before the music began. Rows of white chairs lined the trimmed grass, dotted with people I barely registered. Family, friends, neighbors, faces blurred into soft smiles and pastel outfits. The arch was wrapped in ivy and late summer blooms, and Jessica's voice floated from somewhere inside the house, laughing with her bridesmaids. It was a perfect day, and then I saw her, Emily, standing by the stone path that led around the ceremony, hands clutching something small, maybe a program, maybe just nerves. Her eyes met mine from a distance, hesitant but steady. I knew she'd come. I walked over before anyone could stop me, before Jessica could see, not out of secrecy, but because I needed to face whatever she had left to say. "Michael," she breathed when I reached her. I nodded. "Emily." For a moment, she just stared at me, her hair pulled back, no makeup heavy enough to hide the weight under her eyes. Then she spoke, soft and trembling. "I know I don't have a place in this. I know it's too late to fix anything, and I'm not here to interrupt or beg or do anything awful. She paused, voice cracking. "I need you to know I wasn't trying to ruin us. I didn't set out to betray you." Saul said all the right things when I felt like nothing. And I believed him. I believed that what we had was dull. Safe. I thought I needed something brighter. She wiped under her eye quickly, and then it broke. And now I see it. I see you. What I destroyed. What I'll never get back. I watched her quietly, Let her say every word without flinching. Let the silence stretch after. Then I said, calm and honest, maybe it wasn't love you lost, but something that taught you to value it. Her face collapsed just a little, no dramatic sob, no final grasp for redemption. Just that look a person gets when the truth hits them a beat too late. She nodded slowly. I hope she treats you better than I did. She already does, I said. Emily looked down at her hands, then back up. Goodbye, Michael. Goodbye, Emily. She stepped aside as the music started. I walked the garden path alone, back toward the arch, back toward Jessica, back toward vows that came from something real, not fantasy, not revenge, but something rebuilt from ashes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. And that was the end of the story. Jessica once told me, two can play that game. Just before everything began to change between us, she chose to fight betrayal not with bitterness, but with boldness. So now I need to ask you, did she do the right thing? Or just find a prettier way to break the rules? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit something real for you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.
Lives. My judgment is just, I don't know if it comes with age or experience or just going through so many things, but just be happy. You know, isn't that what life is about? Experiences, making people feel heard and seen and appreciated, and just having gratitude for the things in life that we're so blessed to have and work for. And if we're surrounded by the people we love, that's real success.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. And I feel that a lot of people start getting better at that with the judgment outside. But one of the things that people struggle to deal with the most is the judgment in their head. And I wonder, do you find that you ever catch yourself judging yourself and being hard on yourself and being heavy and harsh on yourself?
No.
You've been able to give that up.
I'll be like competitive with myself. I think I'm a really competitive person, but I'm pretty